Welcome to another episode of the Boomers Podcast. My name is Umar. The Boomers Podcast, here's the deal. This is what this channel is. Basically, I talk about things and guests talk about things that you don't normally talk about in public. Now, why would we do this? The answer is, the objective is to show you that behind all this scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on TikTok, social media, people have problems, people have emotions, people suck, people are awesome. That's the objective. So if you like that, then stick around for the video. But today I want to talk about everything that I learned during my 4 years of undergrad in post-secondary education. So I started this channel right before I went into university. So if you scroll back, it's like a 1 minute, 30-second scroll. You can do it. You can go back to my first episode, and I was 18 years old. I just came out of high school. And life was amazing. Like, life was really good. 2021 was one of my favorite years. And I got accepted into bio at the University of Calgary. So that's where I just graduated, or I will graduate in 10 days, inshallah. But I learned, I see my core self has remained the same, but I've learned so many lessons and I've had so many experiences. So this is just me sharing some of the bad ones and the good ones. And hopefully, if you're thinking about university, maybe you're not in it yet, this will be a good video for you to think about, like, all the changes that can happen and stuff. But yeah, let's get into it. So the theme for my first year was that I was a fraud. Now, the reason why I chose biology was, number one, is because my sister was doing biomedical science, and I was like following her footsteps to become like to go to med school. Then the other one was I thought that bio was really cool. It was one of my better classes in high school, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I genuinely do think it's cool, but not something I would like to do for a career, you know. So I chose biology, and then going into it, right, it's all online. So this is during COVID. This is fall 2021. And I struggled, right? Like it was online, but I still struggled. I tried. I really didn't want to feel like a fraud. So basically, there were some classes where they would allow you to do open book exams and some where they wouldn't. And I remember doing like physics, for example, and I had mental breakdowns over this class. Like it was pretty bad. The other classes were like good, except calc. Calc and physics were pretty bad. The loadout here is bio, chem, physics, calc, and then psych. That was my loadout. So I had a lot of like mental breakdowns over physics because it's really hard and I suck at physics. And by mental breakdowns, I mean like just crying, unable to do it, feeling like really, really hopeless. And like what I would do during my first and second year is basically I wouldn't study. And then because I wouldn't study, I would have the mindset of, okay, I'm already in this so deep, like if I start studying now, it's not going to make a difference. Like I'm still going to do bad. And then that same like toxic cycle kept repeating. But the thing is in the first year, my first year, I was online, so it wasn't like as revealable. But in my second year, it was in person. So I was literally completely exposed. And what I did was I thought that I had imposter syndrome, which is basically where you feel like you're a fraud, but you really aren't. But I was lying to myself that I was like competent, even because I was not competent. I was a complete fraud who just got saved by online. And then when I went in person in my second year, I got completely exposed. My GPA was horrible. My first year GPA was really good. And then the second year GPA was the worst, very bad. Because I had like stuff like organic chemistry and biochemistry, which are really, really hard. And then the bio classes I had as well, like 4 or 5 of them. But I didn't know how to study because I'd never learned. I never did study. And my high school, I did have in person for like half of it, and half of it was online. And I did actually study and do good in in-person exams, but university is a whole different thing. So, my God, that it was like I remember for calc and physics, these were the classes that like I really had mental like breakdowns over, like crying, struggling, feeling hopeless. And when I got to my second year, it was a complete culmination of bad things. So, first of all, I felt like a fraud. I was dreading going to school and having this time come, because when you're a fraud and when you're living a lie, you will do anything to avoid that truth and that thing that threatens who you think you are. You dread that thing coming, so you're gonna do anything to avoid and to cope with it. So what I did was cope with it by, I got a good job, like summer job, and I was like, okay, I did this. That was legit. That was like something that I actually did and I was competent for. But all the other things in my life, it was like I had to distract myself with like, okay, I have a good summer job. Let's go play video games, play whatever. And this is during the semester. Let me break down this entire semester. You can go back to my podcast episodes at this time. This is what was in my head. I was 19. I was in a 850 square foot apartment with my entire family, so 3 other people. I did not have a room. All right, I was sleeping where the dinner table is. I had a day bed there. I did not have a room. That's where I would sleep. My dad wakes up at like 4:30 to start work, and he works from home. So I was literally right across from his desk. Always had my sleep interrupted, especially when he was making breakfast as well. I'd had my sleep interrupted. That stuff is bad. Then when I went to school, I knew that I just couldn't do this. I went into it just like, okay, I don't know how to study. I don't even know what to do. I'm so overwhelmed by like organic chemistry and all these other things. I gave up. I was just like, okay, let me get through this year. Doesn't matter what my GPA is. Med schools drop a year of your school anyways. This will be that year. It was just such a negative way of thinking. And then it's also working part-time at my summer job. I got it to like come over to the winter and fall. So I was doing that too, and I was prioritizing that. I remember this one Friday. It was a Friday. Can you believe this? Since I also, on top of all this, didn't have a friend group. I had friends who I would see every like 2-3 weeks one time, but I didn't have a friend group. So I remember this one Friday, I leave school to go to work. So I get to work at around 3, and then I have a pizza with me as well that I got from this store near the hospital. And then I spend the whole Friday evening like working in the office, and then I get home at like 9 p.m. And like I could have been studying, right? But instead I just wanted to like stick with what I knew was good in my life, and avoid like the reality of like, okay, like you're a terrible student because you're not putting in effort. So, and I'm sure some of you can relate, like when you're living a lie, like you cling on to things that you know you're good at, but the thing that's the real challenge is like the part that you just don't navigate in. And that's a bad, completely horrible thing to do. So second year, completely exposed, horrible GPA. And the way that I got out of this was in my third year. I realized I had the same realization in grade 12, where I realized I needed to take things seriously. And it was so crazy that the exact same like war I battled in high school was the exact same battle that came back in university. And it was crazy because I actually like made it out well in my last 2 years. So in my third year, I ended up doing like really good because I started to study. I think when you the problem is in my first and second year, I really believed in a lot of things, but I didn't embody them until later on. They were just there. I knew these things were good, like putting yourself out there, like being a leader, studying. I knew that these things were good, but I just didn't I couldn't manifest it. And then in my third year, I realized I was like, okay, life is short. I need to do good in school. I need to actually feel good about what I'm doing every day. And I need to finally put myself in an uncomfortable place, because I've been avoiding it and it's been coming and biting me. And oh my God. Whew. It was the 2022 year is something I just blocked out of my head, because I really just I don't like it. It's a very traumatizing time. And even in my videos, if you go back, you'll hear me say that I was in a bad headspace, and I really was, but I just didn't know how to deal with it properly. And I did not even try. But yeah, in my third year, I finally got good grades, and I started to put myself out there. This was the year that I started to try to embody all the things I believed in. So one of the things that I did was I did 2 speeches in public about, they're both, one of them was mental health related, which is podcast. The other one was about my culture. It was at an event in person, and that was great. Another thing that I did was I started to get more putting myself in a position to talk to more girls, and I think that was something that I needed to go through, because now I look back on that and I'm like, that was not an effective way. Just people in class or people that you see that you find attractive, you talk to them. I thought that I should do this and see if it works and try it out. I think it was good that I did that, but I don't think it was a sustainable thing. But the positive thing was I got a lot of experience, I asked girls out on dates and stuff, which I think is a good thing that I did. And I talked about it in a lot of the relationship advice videos that I made over the years. Because up until that point, I had been I always was really interested in women, and for me, it's about getting married. It's not about dating for no reason or whatever, or short term, whatever. It's about marriage, eventually. Obviously not when you're 18, 19, building that foundation, I think, is just something that still matters to me a lot right now at 22. But I really wanted, and I want to start early and grow together, and then eventually at a time where we feel like it's ready, we're ready, then get married. But it hasn't been working so far, and that's okay. God's plan, inshallah. But yeah, I think one of the biggest things I learned was just you have to do things different. This is a lot of the side quests that I did in this time of my life was doing things different. And one of those is and something that I'll always value till now, it's something that I think about every single day, is just being charismatic. I think is one of the most important things about any human being that I talk to in life. And what I mean by that is when you walk out in public, right? When you're in class, think about any setting. There's such a low level of excitement in other people, right? And when I looked at this, and I was and I didn't really hear about people my people in my friend group kind of going out there and talking to girls, or raising their hand up in class and saying something funny. I didn't really hear about this. And then I was okay, I'm going to try to do this, and let's just see what happens, because who cares? And that's a mentality that, if you know me, I know my sister and my mom, they get so pissed off. I say who cares all the time because for a lot of things that have to do with public settings, who does care? It's mostly yourself who cares. So if I remove that from myself, I can do cool things, right? So in my fourth year, then I started to embody that and like talk a lot in my classes, raise up my hand, and just like say whatever was on my mind. My whole degree, I kept my hand down. I kept it down all the time, and my whole life until like my third year, I didn't talk to girls. I wouldn't do that. So why not just start now and make the change? So cliche, so cliche, but like, what's the big deal? Just start. It's so easy, man. Well, starting's the hard part, but it's easy to do it when you get going. And another thing was like trying to be a leader. That I think that's also a really important thing for like just life in general, right? Like especially in family settings, I feel like you need to be on top of things and try to be a leader. So I think with the podcast, it was always like a thing with like trying to be a leader in the sense of like pushing myself always to have some sort of challenge, right? So this could have been like everyone has their own way. I'm sure you have your own way that you would be comfortable with, but for me it was like talking and performing and entertaining. So the speeches that I did was one thing. I also this year started dancing at weddings and like marriage ceremonies and stuff, right? So that was like, and this was something that came completely naturally to me. The speech thing was something that just came. People asked me. I had 2 people come ask me, and then I initially said no, and then I said yes because I was like, okay, let me just challenge. That's the whole like point of university, I think, is like little challenges of like, so for example, in like an exam type thing or like a class, that is just a challenge that you need to go through to develop and learn about yourself. And I think it works very well. But back to the other thing I was saying was that, and then it was that like speech thing. I said no initially, said yes. Then for one of my like my godparents, if that's a thing for me, their son was getting married. Very close family friend, like pretty much like family. So he was getting married, and then obviously I'm gonna like dance. I have to at this is like such a special person to me, right? So me, my sister, and my my other really close family friend, also just like family. His name's I'm stuttering, bro. Hashim. He was in my he's been on the podcast before. We did a dance, and if you search it up, you can find it on YouTube. Search up Kala, Kala, and then Chashma, Chashma. So search that up, scroll, and you'll see me in one of the thumbnails. It's at 110,000 views right now, which is my biggest video that I've ever made in any form. Wish that was on this podcast, but whatever. So yeah, we did a dance. It was a banger. It was so much fun. It was such a challenge to go in front of a group of people and do something and to be judged, right? You don't have to care about the judgment. You don't have to value it, but it was there. The judgment is always there when people are looking at you. They're making conclusions about you, opinions. You don't have to take it in, but it is there. And that environment is something that I think everyone should try out and be in at some point, because when you can be in that position a lot and desensitize yourself to the opinions and the judgments, it is such a good exercise for like being at peace. And you know, then in other times in life when someone's yelling at you or you're in a fight, it's like, okay, I know how to be calmer because I've dealt with judgment and opinions before in scenarios where I was in a lot more stress. I don't know if all that makes sense, but I think in modern society, we are so comfortable, and it's always these little adventures and these little challenges that you do in life that make it so good. And my best memories have been from in my degree, the time in my degree, have been the times where I've done something out of the box and something that's just because there I'm gonna sound like one of those alpha male podcasters right now, and I hate it. But the reality is society does put you in a box, and like the system, the matrix, it does put you in a box, and that box is like the idea that you should be in the crowd always, and you shouldn't be the one like telling or talking or performing or like doing something challenging. That's just one analogy, you know, like I'm sure there are other ways, like, no, I'm not saying everyone has to go dance in a dance or give a speech or something. I'm sure there are different ways where you can do the same thing, but I think that one is just like those two are just so good because you get the feeling of like all these eyes looking at me, and it's like you don't really get that experience too often. You get it for a couple of minutes when you're doing it at that time, but like normally, like, you don't have that experience. So I think it's just such a good thing to put yourself through. Very uncomfortable in the moment. Like for one of them, it was one of my close friends. It was his like, so in Islam, you sign a marriage contract, and that's like a whole event that you celebrate and stuff, right? So after that event was over, after the marriage contract signing was over, then at the very end there was like a dance floor. So I did a 5-minute performance. These tapes are hidden, but if you ever want to see them, just let me know and I'll send it to you. I don't mind. There are lots of people recording anyways. I did a 5-minute performance, and the thing is, this day I went to the gym in the morning, and I was on like 6 hours of sleep, and the performance was like 10:30. I was extremely tired and my body was hurting, and I was very stressed from like the idea of having to perform now in front of a bunch of people, and my body was hurting, my head was hurting, and during the dance I was shaking so much, but I was still performing the dance moves. I don't think anyone noticed, but there was no way in hell I told anyone about that, because that would ruin it all, you know? Like, this guy was just so nervous. You gotta appear confident when you do these things, but inside it's like, dude, I'm so scared. But that's the beauty of it, dude. It's like that is so cool. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I just think it's so cool that like you can, like, just a huge piece of meat just goes in front of like a crowd and does something, and like you appreciate that or you hate it, and then the next day happens and you go to sleep and live your life. And I don't know, am I it's 2:41 a.m. Maybe I'm thinking too deep on this, but I forgot what I wanted to say. Let me give some internship advice, because I got really lucky, and with internships, it is luck, but it also is your your effort. So going into first year, when I was coming first year and second year, that summer between is where I got the summer job I mentioned earlier. So basically I was like, okay, I have volunteer experience with I had 3 volunteer experiences, and I had my podcast. That was something that I mentioned in my interview, but I applied to a bunch of jobs, right? And then one of them was actually like a law student position. And the manager for that saw my application and said, okay, this doesn't even match the position, but she knew someone else who was wanting a student. So she sent, this was so blessed, by the way. She sent my resume to that prof, and then that's the job that I got. So like one person's actions just changed my whole like undergraduate experience. And then I ended up staying with them for that summer, the summer after, and then last summer. So I got a bunch of experience with this it's a stroke group. You can stalk my LinkedIn. It's public information. So then that was luck, but also my boss told me about it, he said that there were out of 5, me and one other student were out of 5 that were chosen. So there was a little element of competition. It was super low key apparently. Like this application was or the listing for the job was very low key, but it was because of my interview, which was a phone call where I talked about all my experiences and what I could bring to the table, that I got that job, right? But there was also a huge element of luck. So when you're applying, especially if you're doing like a biology one, you got to do as much as you can, and you got to be different, man. My like phone call, I made sure I was like making jokes, and I knew who he was and everything, and what he did, the research he was involved in. And once you get your internship, always you got to be asking for work, because you're gonna, like, you normally don't need 8 hours to do the work, 8 hours per day to do the work that you're gonna do. You need like 3 maybe, but you need to constantly ask for work to put yourself at the top. Always make sure you're busy and like trying to be the best you can be, and get as many opportunities as you can. Talk to as many people as you can, coworkers, build connections, because when you graduate, you'll need them. And I'll get onto that in a little bit. Why am I forgetting what I want to say? Come on. Yeah. So one other thing was something that I noticed in my peers was like the idea of prioritizing school and work too much. So I made it I was lucky enough, to be able to make money in the summers, to have money for myself. Also, I was very lucky to have a very supportive family in my degree, financially, emotionally, everything. So I was able to travel a lot, and I think this is like probably the number one thing of the last 4 years that like I love, is the fact that I traveled so much. I went to 11 countries, so US, France, Switzerland, Italy, Bahrain, Pakistan, Indonesia. Sorry, that's not 11, but I've gone to 11 countries in my life. I think that's 7 or 8. So I think, dude, you need to like at this point in your life, I would highly recommend doing an exchange program if you can't afford to like travel like a lot. Also, England is in there in that list, but exchange programs. I know a lot of people who did exchange programs in Japan, Spain, somewhere in South America. But like that is also like a really cool thing that I didn't do because I was already doing a lot of traveling. But I know people who, and obviously not everyone has the privilege, and a lot of degrees are different, the way you have to work them. But man, make time for travel, because it is like one of the most like rewarding things I've ever done. I went to Indonesia with my mom, just like this trip happened 3 weeks ago and ended like last week ish. And I was the one who planned everything. I was the one who organized the whole trip, what we were doing every day. And then I was the one there, just dealing with the taxis, because you can't you can't rent a car there. It's crazy. It's unless you know how to drive a scooter, you're screwed. So you got to do taxis and stuff. But taxis, Airbnbs, everything, all that was my responsibility. My mom was chilling, right? But I had never got that opportunity before. It was always my sister or my parents who were taking that role. This time I took that role, and it was one of the most important experiences of my life, was being like the leader of a vacation and bearing the responsibility. If something goes wrong, it's on you. You got to accept that. It's a good thing, very good thing. I highly recommend. And I just think, yeah, man, like travel has been such an important thing. My 2020s have been like really good because of it. The summer months were really good because of it. But yeah, I just needed to say that because not enough people travel, in my opinion. A lot of people neglected and prioritize school and work and other things, but it's so important. And yeah, I wanted to talk about like what's next for me, right? Because I did a biology degree, not a very employable degree on its own. So I went into this with the idea of med school because my sister was doing that. I just fell in line, right? But I think I won't shut the door on it. I don't know what I want to do, right? So what I decided to do was take a gap year and work and research for a year, and then go back to school just to have a year to figure things out. Also take a break because I think it's completely inhumane to do school for 18 years straight, or however many it is when you're 24. If you do it back to back to back to back, I think that's wrong, right? So definitely a year to chill, to experience real life, realize, okay, maybe I don't want to do this and I want to go back to school. I definitely am going back to school for sure, because just a biology degree will not be enough to support a family, right? I just don't know what for yet. But inshallah that is to come. And I guess in a couple of years you'll see what becomes of this, because I don't know. And that's one thing about university, man, is it's so uncertain. And you have your free will and your imagination and your self-determination. You got to make things happen. It's not going to come to you. No one's going to come to freaking save you. It's got to be all you. So huge lessons that I learned in my degree, and I'm very grateful to be able to like have an education. I don't think that the education itself is good, because I learned a lot of this stuff from travel and from work. I think those taught me way more than anything I learned in school. Unfortunately, that's just how our education system is. Especially for biology. Maybe for engineering it's different. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. But yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. That was my university review thing, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, check out the other videos if you like mental health stuff. But yeah, thanks for watching. See you. Bye.